I know we've all been through moments where we get our hearts set on something and then we have disappointment. This is an example of noticing the signs from across the veil, noticing how our loved ones are trying to help us manifest our dreams. They know what we want, and an example of connecting the dots when our loved ones send us signs and gifts. So notice how this works as I share this story, and trusting when things aren't going as you think they should be, even when the signs are there. Are you ready? Okay. So Susan was a sergeant in the Marine Corps. Most of you probably know my story, but she was struck by lightning in 2006, crossing the flight line at Marine Corps Air Station, Cherry Point, North Carolina. She took her last breath on that base. They worked on her for 7 hours and could not save her or her unborn child, Liam. 6 months pregnant she was. So we got the news about this happening, Ty and I did, it's his daughter Susan, while we were sailing our sailboat off the coast of Croatia. Ty and I are both retired Navy officers. He calls me a short timer. I served for 20 years. He served for 26 years. He's a ship's captain. He spent 14 of those 26 years at sea on 7 different ships. That man is more at home on the sea than he is on land. I had to retire from the Navy to go to sea because women weren't allowed on ships when I first came in the Navy. So I got my captain's license when we decided we were going to go sailing off into the sunset on our boat and live a dream of the cruising on a sailboat lifestyle. I got my captain's license so that my captain could sleep when I was on watch. And so we're both pretty accomplished sailors. We love sailing, sailed across the Atlantic Ocean. And it was then when we were in the Mediterranean off the coast of Croatia, we got the news about Susan's death. It literally took the wind out of our sails. We left the boat in Turkey, came back here, Ty went back to work. We literally had the boat shipped back on a ship when we realized we were not going to continue that dream. Susan's death devastated us. So I may be a shining light parent now, filled with joy, but it's because I know Susan is still here. But at the time, there wasn't that great joy, of course. I didn't know there was a greater reality. I didn't know there was an afterlife. But it was through my meditative practice and everything that I've shared in my documentary and the Messages of Hope book that opened me up to this greater reality that it is now my greatest joy to share with all of you. And as you can imagine, it completely changed my life. We got the boat back here on the East Coast. We did not have a house. We had sold our house and cars to go sailing. We didn't have a whole lot of money. We still had the boat. And I opened up to the spirit world. I started getting daily messages. We decided to move ashore and we got a house, but we hung on to the boat. And then this diving into the afterlife, once I discovered I could connect with other people's loved ones across the veil, I could bring them healing like a medium brought our family healing. It became my life, this path. It became my obsession. It remains so. I don't like to call it an obsession. I call it a burning desire, but Ty says it's an obsession. But the hardest thing ever was to tell my husband, I just can't do the boating thing anymore. This is my calling. I am supposed to do this. I knew that Susan's passing was the catalyst, that it was all part of some plan, and we were going to honor her and show all of you that death is not the end. To tell my ship captain husband who loved sailing, I could not do the boating thing anymore. I think if we didn't have as strong a marriage as we had, it would have been divorce. The pain on his face was horrible. For me to push him to that point was the worst thing I ever had to do. I'm prefacing this story with this so you understand why what I'm about to tell you is a big deal. It was really hard to sell the boat. So we sold the boat and we moved to Central Florida, where we lived for 11 years. The first time in Ty's entire life, he lived more than 12 miles from the ocean. And suddenly we're 2 hours from the big water For 11 years, that man gave it up for me to do this work. So we decided 3 years ago, let's move back near the water. I think we can get a boat and just play around on a boat. I didn't want to go cruising again. And so we moved to South Carolina and we started looking at boats. We actually got a big boat, but when you get a boat, you have it inspected by a marine surveyor. Ty is really particular about boats. And some of you may remember the time that Ty almost died from a small surgery that went awry. He ended up in the hospital for days, right when the big boat we were buying was being surveyed. They went ahead with the survey. We got that boat and never bonded with it because the surveyor missed several big problems with it that never would have happened if Ty had been there. And his recovery took so long, we just decided, let's sell the boat. So we were gun shy 3 years ago about getting that boat after all. So maybe in the last year, we started thinking, maybe we give up sailing and get a little motorboat, a power boat. Maybe like a little tugboat, something that we're not going to go cruising on. They make these pleasure tugboats. They're really cute, and I thought it would be great for Captain Ty to have this tugboat. Come to find out, all our friends said, that's not you guys. You know, it's a cute boat, Suzanne, but it's not you guys. But we actually had a deposit on this little tugboat, and we went aboard some friends' sailboat, this 51-foot sailboat near here, near South Carolina, where we live. And we looked at each other and we said, oh my God, we are not little tugboat people. Do you remember how awesome it was to sail? Let's get a sailboat. Let's try the sailboat thing again. Okay, so we started looking at the kind of boat that these friends had. The brand is called the Jeanneau. And we identified this really nice sailboat. It's called the Jeanneau 44-foot boat. The boat we crossed the Atlantic in was 46 feet. And I just kept thinking, though, back to 2009, I had a reading with one of my original mediumship mentors, Janet Nohavik. She brought Susan through so clearly. She said, your daughter's talking about you guys sailing. She says you're going to get another boat. And I said, well, I'm sure someday we probably will. And she said, your stepdaughter says it's going to be bigger than the boat you gave up. And I said, I can't imagine that. Our boat's 46 feet. Well, as I just told you, we got a 49-footer, but we ended up sailing it right away because of Ty's illness. I thought that was the bigger boat, right? The one that Susan talked about. So clearly the little tugboat wasn't going to cut it. But once we identified this Jeanneau, our friend's 51-footer, we said, that is too much boat for us. We didn't care what Susan had said. 51 feet is too big. And we're not going cruising. It's just going to be for around the waters in South Carolina. So we identified this Jeanneau 44. We looked at a few. The market for boats, by the way, is just like the housing market in the US right now. The second one comes available, they're gone. People are just buying them up. I don't know what it is with boats, but we would call, we'd find a Jeanneau 44, it's gone. Well, we identified two. One was way up north in Newport, Rhode Island. One was the west coast of Florida. Both of those, if we got them, would take us a good 2 weeks to sail to our home port. That's hard to work into the schedule. Both of them were a little older. They would have been a compromise because it didn't have the right layout, just things that they were okay, but we couldn't get excited. And suddenly I heard from my guides, check the listings again. So I'm hearing from the guides, right? So I checked the listings and there's a Jeanneau 44. Where did that come from? It had just appeared. And right when I looked, I couldn't believe it. So I'm listening to the guides, follow it. Listen, when you get a nudge like that, you act on it. There's a lesson for you. Don't wait, especially something like this where it could disappear right away. So I called and it was available. We got so excited. Not only was it available, there were no compromises. It was the layout we wanted. the colors we wanted. And are you ready for this? It wasn't way up in Newport or West Coast of Florida. Unbelievably, it was 1 hour away from where we live in South Carolina. 1 hour by car, which is 3 or 4 hours by boat, but that's okay. One day it would take to get this boat home. We made an offer immediately, sight unseen. We were so excited. Oh my God, can you believe this? So we went to see the boat. We went aboard it. Oh my God, it was perfect, perfect boat. So the owners were there to show us the boat. She said, let's take a picture of you, Suzanne, at the wheel. Now the boat it's called On the Hard. It was out of the water. It was up in a cradle. So I'm going to show you a picture that I suddenly knew this was meant to be. Look at this picture of me at the helm of this boat in the boatyard. Do you see the shafts of light? 2 shafts of light coming down with rainbows in them. To me, it was like Susan saying, this is your boat, Suzanne. Now, some people might say that's a reflection, but there was nothing up there to reflect upon. And what was really cool was the name of this boat. Usually when you buy a used boat, you have to rename it because people give boats silly names that have no meaning to you, and you change it and you have to repaint the bottom of the back of the boat where the name is. This boat, the name was unbelievable. A sign from Susan. So I have to back up and tell you why. Of course, the worst day of our life was Susan's funeral. When I looked at her body at the viewing, that was my life-changing moment. When I looked and I said, that's not Susan. That's just the vessel. Susan has to still be here. I'm going to find her and I'm going to take Ty to a medium. But how am I going to convince him that she still exists? Well, it had been a perfectly still day. We're in the funeral, in the memorial service, this big auditorium filled with Marines. We walked out of the chapel and suddenly the wind stirred up out of nowhere in this circular motion, and all these leaves were dancing in a big circle as the wind whipped them around. And Ty looked up and he said, that's Susan. And it was that moment when I knew I would be able to get him to go with me to a medium, and he's been on board ever since. So the wind dancing. And the week I took him to a medium, I discovered a song by Josh Groban called And She Dances. And She Dances. That song would come on the radio and I kept hitting replay, replay, replay. I had it on a DVD, right? Over and over, obsessively. And I didn't know why. And when we went to that medium at the end of the week, the medium said, well, there's a young woman who just stepped in and she's standing in front of you, Suzanne, and she's dancing and dancing in front of you. And I knew it had been Susan that brought that song to me over and over again. 10 years after Susan passed, on her angelversary, the day of her 10th anniversary of her passing, I was speaking at a conference. I carried my laptop down to the stage, about to go on stage. My laptop was in its case. I was a little despondent because I said, Susan, where are you today? I haven't heard from you all day, and this is a special day. Suddenly, I heard music. It was coming from my closed computer inside the case. It was playing Josh Groban's And She Dances. My friends, there is no other explanation than that Susan was pulling some strings there. So all that background is to tell you the name of this Jeanneau 44 with the shaft of light coming down that was the perfect boat 1 hour away is Wind Dancer. There was no way we were going to change the name of that boat, right? Okay. So we had to line up a survey, and you know Ty was going to be at this boat survey this time. There was no way he was going to miss it. And the boat was perfect. It was so lightly used. Amazing. It was a 2019, but the owner had only taken it out 3 or 4 times and then met a woman, and you know the rest of that story, right? So we were really excited because we didn't have to pay full price. We could afford this boat and lightly used. So to line up a survey is complicated. You got to get the surveyor there, you have to get the broker there, the owner there, and you have to get the yard to haul the boat out and put it in the water so you can test it in the water. So all these pieces of the puzzle and our schedule all have to come together. It took us 10 days till we could line up a date. 10 days is a long time to wait when you're looking forward to something. So we lined it up for the day I was due to come back from leading a workshop in Sedona in March. Okay, I'm all excited. Oh boy, I can't wait to go to Sedona. And the day I get back, we get to go aboard the boat and have the survey. And I know it's going to be perfect because this is the perfect boat. And Susan sent us a wind dancer. Thursday, the day before I leave for Sedona, we get a call from the broker. I have some bad news. They went to put the boat in the water and nothing's working. We said, what do you mean nothing's working? Well, the engine won't start because the control unit is fried and none of the instruments are working because the instruments are fried and the autopilot is fried and everything electrical is fried because the boat was struck by lightning. I found this out 1 hour before I had to do a live interview for the Shift Network online. In the old days, I would have probably fallen on the floor and kicked my feet like a kid and cried, right? Had a fit. But I learned from my guides to take a deep breath and say, isn't that interesting? And that's exactly what I did. I did not let the disappointment overcome me. I said, I know this is our boat, and I know there's a reason. I don't know what it is. Ty said, it's going to be a good 2 months till they fix that. It's too much. We'd had a boat that was struck by lightning years ago, and it really does. It just ruins everything. But we didn't realize that these Genots, all the modern electronics are interconnected. So we delayed, and I was so disappointed to come back from Sedona to nothing. And with, what do they call it? Supply chain issues. Haven't we learned those 3 words now? Everybody knows the word, supply chain issues. The parts were delayed. I won't go into these details, but it dragged on. We finally rescheduled the survey, got all the pieces together, and they said, well, the parts didn't come in. We rescheduled 3 times, dragging this out for 6 weeks. While I was in Sedona, a friend gifted me a reading with a psychic. She was spot on about everything in my life. And I said, can I ask a question? It's funny, even when you're a psychic, you know, you don't get all the answers. I told her what was going on. And I said, for some reason, and this is key, everybody, I've been asking my daughter and my guides, what's up with this boat? What the heck has been put in the email that went out? And the psychic got nothing. And I said, I'm getting no answers. And I get answers. I don't sense my daughter. I'm not getting answers. So all I'm doing is flowing because I know this is our boat. I'm just flowing. And the psychic tuned in and she said, that's all I get to, just keep flowing. So I remain calm, but patience is one of the things this soul came here to work on, right? I'm getting better, but it has been the longest 2 months waiting and a huge lesson in non-attachment, right? Blessings every day for what we do have in our lives. If this boat weren't in our lives, does my life change? Not at all. I love my friends. I love my family. I'm so grateful for the connection. So a boat is a nice thing, but I was not going to let it get to me. So every time I felt that frustration, all these spiritual tools that we know come to play. Isn't this interesting? And yet, during the entire 6 weeks of delays, nothing from my guides. One psychic told me, it's just going to make the boat all the more special. It's like the coolest story. And it is, right? You know, my daughter who was struck by lightning sends us this perfect boat with the name Wind Dancer, and then it's struck by lightning, and it's going to be repaired, and it's going to be the perfect boat. But the problem was they kept finding more problems. Well, finally they thought it was fixed, and last Tuesday we went to survey. Finally, everybody comes together. We're walking down the pier, and I see a boat named Wind Dancer. And I went, wait, that's not the boat. That's not a Jeannot 44. Believe it or not, here's the boat Wind Dancer we're going to survey. And there's another Wind Dancer right behind it. There's no real meaning in this. It's just one of those, isn't that interesting moments. We got to talking to the owner of the second Wind Dancer. You ready? The guy's a retired Navy destroyer captain. So of course they do this thing, well, what ships did you serve on? And the guy said, I served on the Brinkley Bass in Vietnam. I looked at Ty, he looked at me, we burst out laughing because we've been together 26 years. And for 26 years, Ty has been telling a story about a funny, hilarious story about the time that his destroyer was tied up astern of the Brinkley Bass. And here's Wind Dancer with another Wind Dancer tied up astern of her. You can't make this stuff up. I just heard right now, it is important to the story because it shows we were supposed to be exactly there in that moment. So we went aboard the boat, and right away I noticed it was filthy. It's been in the yard for 2 months. It's stained. I was hoping a good cleaning could help it, but all I could think was, why didn't the owner clean this? Why didn't the yard clean this? You're trying to sell a boat, you clean it up. And I found that interesting. And my guides just reminded me, I didn't tell you one of the most stunning links to this boat. When we found the owner's name, because we both signed a purchase agreement, Ty Googled the owner. You just do that these days, right? Oh, what does he do? Where's he from? He came up to me with his iPad in hand and his eyes really big. He said, Suzanne, the owner of Wind Dancer has a child across the veil. And are you ready for this? His child passed in an accident. The last communications he had with any living being were with officials at Marine Corps Air Station Cherry Point, where Susan died. If you can't see the connections and that we were supposed to be on that boat, there's just no denying it. So a little bit surprised to go aboard, and it's filthy. The owner showed up later. The surveyor was there, and I'll make this really short. The things they fixed were not working. The technician was playing around on this little touch screen, trying to get the right things to come up. And I'm looking at Ty, who needs me to program most things on his iPad, whatever it is. And I'm thinking, he won't be able to use this. He can't use these modern electronics. And it was a disaster. Nothing's working. And I just kept thinking, what's up with this boat? I hope right now you're saying, wait, this is their boat. All the signs, right? The shafts of light, the location, the perfect boat, struck by lightning, the name, the son killed in the same place. So we went to do the sea trial. We get it in the water, we go underway. You have to test the engines. They go to test the sails to make sure that the sails are not torn. They go to pull the sails out. This is a modern type where they wrap around, they roll up inside the mast. It's really cool. And you pull it out, it's really cool until they jam halfway out. The big mainsail completely jammed, and the half of it that is out, flapping in this wild wind. I have been at sea when sails go nuts. It's one of the worst parts about sailing. And I just thought, I don't want this. And we flailed around, and I just sat back and I let the broker and the owner unjam it. And I just sat there and I thought, okay. Ty and I looked at each other. We shared a look, and I thought, I don't care what signs Susan sent. This is not our boat. And we got back in and we said, well, surveyor, you finished the survey. Let us know how it goes. We're going home now. We didn't tell them that we were rejecting the boat, but we walked down the boat and we went, reject. And I said, and Ty, you're too old to be messing with sales. It's the first time I've ever said you're too old to him. He looked at me and he looked really insulted and he said, I resemble that remark. Because he agreed, both of us, we don't want to be messing with sales anymore. And I said, maybe we should be looking at a power boat because the need, the desire to be on the water is still there. So now you're asking, well, what's this all about? I know I was, right? The perfect boat. You notice how you can't deny all the signs. I'm trying to relate this to all of you here, right? So I said, let's just go back and look at power boats again. And I thought back to about 8 years ago, I did a vision board. What would be my dream boat, my dream house? And for me, it would be a big boat. They're called trawlers. They look kind of shippy. They look like little ships, a trawler, but they don't guzzle fuel. That's too expensive. They go slow. They're sturdy, but the best thing is some of them have a bridge like on a ship, a special place out of the main salon where you live. Most the little tugboat we were going to buy just has a wheel in the living area of the boat. That to me is not my Ty. I want Captain Ty on a bridge, but those boats were usually too expensive. But I said, let's just look and see what trawlers are out there. He said, sure, go ahead and look. So I remembered the reading with Janet Nohavit. And she had said, Susan says you're going to have a bigger boat than the one you gave up for her. That one was 46. So I did a search for boats 46 to 50 feet. It couldn't be more than 50 feet because we now have a slip. We actually have a slip. We already got it in advance for Wind Dancer, and now we're boatless. But the slip is only 50 feet long and the marina was strict. You cannot exceed the length of your slip. So my search was for boats 46 to 50 feet because Susan said it had to be bigger than 46 and 50 feet. We're riding home from the survey an hour. I'm looking for boats. And my friends, for the first time in 2 months, I heard Susan giggling. She was back. She was back. I was like, okay, what's going on here? And suddenly I hear my guides and they're saying, continue with your search. So I searched and I found a few boats that looked kind of cool. Yeah, they looked pretty nice. We get home, I made a couple calls. And again, I hear, look again. I looked and there was this boat. I said, oh my God, Ty, look at this boat. It's a 50-foot trawler. Look at that bridge. And it has a blue hull. My whole life, I've wanted a blue hull boat. They're just beautiful. 50-foot boat. It looked like a little ship. And the price was a little high, but it was within our range. I said, can I call? Should I call? Should I call? He says, call. The broker got back to us right away. I said, is this boat still available? Multiple times, broker said, no, it's gone, it's gone. He says, yeah, that boat's still available. And my very first question, why hasn't anyone bought it yet? Are you ready? Well, the owner just reduced the price. The owner reduced the price 2 brackets from where I was looking. I never would have looked in the price bracket this boat was in, but he had just reduced it right when the survey failed for Wind Dancer, right? So how did this go next? We said to him, look, it says it's a 50-footer. Can you confirm it is 50 feet because our slip will only hold a 50-foot boat? He says, look, I've been aboard this boat. I know this boat. It's a one-owner boat. It's 19 years old, but very well maintained. I know it's 50 feet, but let me get the design drawing. So we're all excited. We're all excited. And he calls us back right before we're ready to go to bed. He says, I have bad news. It's actually 54 feet with the anchor sprit and the swim platform. I absolutely felt crushed. Attachment disorder, right? I thought, no, this is supposed to be our boat. And I heard, notice in the whole process with Wind Dancer, I never heard my guides, trust the process. So we went to bed and I knew to trust. The next morning in meditation, I sit down because we're going to, we're just going to go measure the slip. The guide said, Wind Dancer had to keep you going. There had to be a catastrophic event so that you would wait until your perfect boat became available. You will measure the slip and it will fit. Now, I couldn't believe this because I pulled out the maps from the marina and they're 50-foot slips. We get the tape measure, but I'm trusting. We go to the marina. We measured 55 feet. 55 feet. So now we're leaving for our summer tour in the RV at the end of this month. I know how long it takes to line up surveyors, everybody. This is last Thursday. Can you imagine what nerve it took us to call surveyors and say, can you meet us in Maryland on Monday? We need a survey Monday. This is last Thursday. And can the owner get there Monday? And oh, by the way, this is a power boat, so we need an additional engine surveyor on Monday. And we need the yard to be able to pull the boat on Monday. Do you know, I knew it would come together. Every single piece of the puzzle came together. We got in our bus, drove 2 days to Maryland, and did the survey yesterday. She passed with flying colors. We said to the surveyor later, how could you have been available on Monday with such short notice? He said, it's just the weirdest thing. I'm booked a month out. I don't know. I just had a free day. Can you all see this coming together? This is Susan saying, you gave up, Dad, you gave this up to honor me and to help others. It's your time now. It's so beautiful. I'll get to the lessons in just a minute here, but I felt Susan. The guides are talking like crazy. I mean, they talked me through the bridge tunnel with the bus, right? In their back. But I got choked up repeatedly yesterday. Susan's presence was so clear. The love was so present. And so she's going to be ours. And I wanted to show you a picture. And I want to tell all of you, I am not giving up this work. This boat, this is modern day now. 11 years ago, we didn't have internet on the water. And I'll be able to take the internet. I'll be able to do readings. I'll find lovely friends ashore wherever we are if we're cruising, and use your house to do webinars. But your dreams can come true when they're aligned with a higher mission. So let me share the screen. I have to show you a picture of Captain Ty. Look at Captain Ty on the bridge of that boat. And there's a little windblown Suzanne on the bridge of the boat. This is what I mean by a bridge. It's not just a wheel and a salon. This little trawler has a pilot house, a wheelhouse. And so, I mean, I don't think I've felt that joy. You can see it on Ty's face in years. I just could have cried all day long yesterday. And I will show you the boat. And we've decided on a name, and I know you will all agree it's perfect. The boat, by the way, the name has to be changed because it's named after the owner's ex-wife. So that just certainly will not do, right? But here she is, and we are naming her Gratitude. Isn't she beautiful? She's a little ship. And so we thank Susan for the boat with so much gratitude. One more little story before I get to the lessons for all of this in this story. Took my breath away. We looked at each other. We shook the surveyor's hands, the owner's hand. We said, we'll see you soon when we come to take possession. I'm not kidding you. We got in the car, plugged in my phone to get the map to get us back to the campground. For the first time in over a year since I've heard it, from somewhere deep in my phone, the song that came on the speakers was, and she dances. I'm going to cry. It's magic. It's absolutely magic how our loved ones pull out all the stops, right? So the lessons for all of us, I have notes, I don't need notes, right? It's trust. Trust that your loved ones know your dreams. Trust that they will pull out all the stops. They'll leave you signs. The biggest lesson for me is when your guides stop talking, there's a reason. Now, you have to first be talking to your guides. So this doesn't count if you say, well, I've never heard from my guides. This is why it's so important to establish a relationship with your team. They will guide you moment by moment. And when there's a reason for you to just flow, they step back. They're still here, but they'll show up. They showed up in little signs along the way. But this was a lesson in trust. How many of you start hitting a wall and you know you're just not supposed to do something? We have learned that lesson, and this is a huge one. And Bev and Lynette know it. If you're hitting a wall, there's a reason. It doesn't mean immediately change course. You like that nautical term? Don't change course. Stop and tune in. In this case, I was stopping every day while we kept rescheduling the survey and while things are still broken and we're getting disappointed. Are we supposed to give up the idea of the boat? Are we supposed to look at another sailboat? If we had given up at that point, we would have looked at another sailboat. We might have even bought another sailboat. What a disaster that would have been, and we would have missed gratitude. So it's a moment by moment flowing, trusting, listening. Watch, watch, watch. When you're so attached to the outcome that you make decisions that you know aren't right, that you make the ultimate decision. Attachment, you know you're attached when you kick and scream like a kid and cry, right? You know you're attached when your disappointment lasts, when you can't even find the ability to say, to step back and say, isn't this interesting? That phrase will take you to neutral. It allows you to stop and ask your guides, what do I do here? Why is whatever is happening to you happening in this moment? The signs, when you know they're real signs, there are two elements to them. They're timely. The timing you can't deny, and they're meaningful. I hope that in the story I just told, you can't miss the meaning, right? And the timing. Then learn to connect all the dots. See how one thing leads to another, how you can't miss that Spirit's doing their best to guide you, but they can't give you all the answers. They can't give you the end result. That's our goal, to learn to trust, to flow, to tune in, to ask, to listen to your gut, to not make rash decisions, tuning in moment by moment. And again, if you don't hear anything, trust there's a reason. Practice always the attitude of what I call, and I've taught in these monthly connections, wouldn't it be amazing? So instead of, oh, I have to have a trawler for Captain Ty. No, I didn't know if that was what this was all about as we were looking at boats. But wouldn't it be amazing if this beautiful blue-hulled boat with it looks like a little ship that's just the right size comes to pass? Wouldn't it be amazing is a beautiful manifestation tool. So write that one down and practice it. Wouldn't it be amazing if I get my dream home? Wouldn't it be amazing if I get a job that really fulfills and satisfies me? When you open it up to wouldn't it be amazing without having to have all the details, remember, the devil's in the details. When you open it up to wouldn't it be amazing, trust me, your guides and loved ones know what's in your best interest. I never dreamed, oh, right. There's another little piece. I never dreamed we'd have a boat like this. It's so far out of the realm of possibility. I can't believe the guy lowered the price to brackets. Well, he did because he was guided to. The broker said he wasn't going to sell it to anybody who wouldn't treat it as well as he did. But are you ready for this? The brand of the boat is a cherubini. It means in Italian, cherubs. What have I bought 8 of in the last 2 months? Little cherub statues, having no idea. Cherubini is a maker of some of the most gorgeous classic sailboats in history, built right in New Jersey, believe it or not, in the United States. We had no idea they even made power boats. We never would have looked at it when it was that expensive. The other thing is, if the broker had known it was 54 feet, he would have put that in the listing. We would have immediately dismissed it and not bought it, not even asked about it. But instead, it unfolded as it did. So practice, wouldn't it be amazing, instead of it has to unfold this way? Because spirit knows what's amazing for you far more than even your own dreams. I want you to live with a miracle mindset. This is an amazing story I've shared, and I hesitated to even show you a picture of it because I just want you to appreciate that miracles happen when you trust the process. And we all deserve miracles, don't we? Align with love and be the presence of love, and the universe will fall over backwards to help you. Okay? That's how it works. Pay attention to your thoughts and the signs they give, and remain in a state of gratitude. I had said to Ty, name, when we get a boat, you should name it this time. And he said, okay, I will. And I said, do you have a name for the boat? And he said, not yet, not yet. And suddenly it was just given to me. And I said, Ty, I have the perfect name. And he said, what? And I said, gratitude. You should have seen the look on his face. He just melted. He just went, oh, I have such gratitude for you and our babies. That's our dog. He calls them the dogs of the babies. I have such gratitude for you and our babies and our life, and for Susan. See, the man has such a soft side. He can be, very much the Navy captain, but it's perfect. And it's a clue to life, my friends. Gratitude brings you into alignment with the soul faster than anything. We can think about love, align with love, but we as humans all have different ideas of what love is. Remain in a state of grateful for whatever you have in your life. I wish abundance for everyone, that you can have your dreams, but the real abundance is learning these lessons, however that plays out for all of you.